Imagine the night sky above you. The world is quiet, your room is still, and far beyond the stars, the gods of old once watched over humankind. Their thrones sat among clouds, their voices carried in the wind, and their stories shaped the dreams of the ancient world. Tonight, as the moonlight rests upon your window, we travel back to that time, to hear those stories once more. Welcome, dear viewer, and thank you for joining us once again on Go to Sleep Historian. Here, we bring the calm of storytelling and the comfort of history together, sharing ancient tales, forgotten legends, and the peaceful rhythm of the past to help you unwind and drift gently into sleep. If this is your first visit, we warmly invite you to subscribe and become part of our growing circle of listeners who end their days in peace, reflection, and wonder. And to our returning friends, thank you, truly, for supporting this journey through time and dream. Wherever you are in the world, perhaps it's late evening in your country, the stars just beginning to appear. Maybe dawn is approaching, and your city is still half asleep. Whatever the hour, whatever the land beneath your sky, take this moment as your own. Breathe deeply, let the world slow down, and allow your mind to settle into stillness. Tonight's story is called Whispers of Olympus. The Greek myths retold. We will travel to ancient Greece, to a world before kings and empires, when the heavens were ruled by mighty gods and the earth was shaped by titans. We will witness the birth of Zeus, the fall of Kronos, and the long, golden age of heroes. These are the myths that gave the ancient world its voice, and still echo softly in our hearts today. When this spoken story gently comes to an end, full calm, relaxing music will continue guiding you into deep and peaceful rest. So now, find your comfort, let your thoughts grow quiet, and together, let us begin Whispers of Olympus. The Greek myths retold. In the time, before mountains, oceans, or even the light of the sun, there was only silence. The world had not yet begun. There was no land, no sky, no air, and no sea. There was only a vast emptiness, a quiet space without shape or sound. The ancient storytellers called this emptiness chaos. But chaos was not disorder, nor was it noise. It was simply nothing, a deep and endless stillness. No wind stirred, no waves moved, and no stars shone. It was the beginning before beginnings, the moment when all things still slept in darkness. From that emptiness, the first powers of existence slowly awoke. Out of chaos came Gaia the earth. She was strong and patient, the great mother of all things that would ever live. From her would come mountains, valleys, forests, and rivers. She stretched out like a great plain under a sky that did not yet exist. Then came Tartarus, the deep abyss below the earth, a dark realm so far beneath that no light could ever reach it. And with them came Eros, the power of love and desire. Not yet the god of romance, but the silent force that drew things together and gave them purpose. It was this gentle bond that allowed the world to begin forming. Next came Nyx, the night quiet, graceful, and dark as velvet. And with her came Erebus, the shadow of the underworld. Together, they gave the world its first rhythm, night, and darkness. From their union were born Ether, the bright air of the heavens, and Hemora the day, who followed her mother's shadow like dawn after dusk. Through these first beings, the world began to move and breathe. Night chased day, and day followed night. Light and shadow found their dance. The stillness of chaos slowly gave way to the first sense of time. But the story of creation had only just begun. Gaia, the earth, strong and fertile, looked around her endless body and saw that she was alone. The sky above her was empty, and she longed for something to complete her. So, from her own being, she gave birth to Uranus, the sky, vast and filled with glittering stars. When Uranus rose above her, stretching across the heavens, the world took shape for the first time. The earth lay below, rich and green, and the sky arched above, shining with promise. The two became the first great pair, earth and sky, mother and son, wife and husband, their bond forming the foundation of all creation. Together, Gaia and Uranus brought forth many children, the first generation of mighty beings, known as Titans. They were it, tall, powerful, and ancient, each holding a part of the world within them. There were 12 in all, 6 sons and 6 daughters. Among them were Oceanus, who became the endless river that encircled the world; Hyperion, Lord of Light; Cus, the seeker of knowledge; Crias, master of the constellations; Iapetus, ancestor of mankind; and Cronus, the youngest and most cunning. The daughters were no less grand: Thea, shining mother of the sun and moon; Rhea, who would one day bear the gods; Themis, the spirit of law and justice; Mnemosyne, memory itself; Phoebe, the bright one; and Tethys, the gentle sea. But Gaia's womb brought forth more than beauty. She also bore the Cyclopes, great smiths, with a single burning eye in their foreheads, and the Hecatonchires, giants with 50 heads and 100 arms each, beings of enormous power and strength. Uranus, proud lord of the sky, looked upon these monstrous children with fear and disgust. Though he loved his fair Titan children, he could not bear the sight of the others. He forced them back into Gaia's depths, deep within the earth's belly, locking them in the darkness of Tartarus. Gaia groaned beneath the weight of her hidden children. Her body ached, and her heart filled with sorrow. She had loved Uranus, yet now she suffered under him. Each night he pressed upon her, and each day she felt the pain of her imprisoned offspring. In her grief, Gaia began to plan. She whispered to her Titan children, telling them of their father's cruelty and the suffering he had caused her. She asked for their help, for one among them to rise against Uranus and set her free. The Titans were afraid. None dared to face their father, except for one Cronus, the youngest and the most clever. He stepped forward and said, "Mother, I will do as you ask. Give me the strength, and I shall end his tyranny." Gaia smiled, though her heart was heavy. From the stone and bones of her own body, she shaped a great sickle, its blade sharp and shining like moonlight. She gave it to Cronus and told him what must be done. That night, as Uranus descended upon the earth as he always did, Cronus waited in the shadows. When the moment came, he struck swiftly with the sickle, cutting down his father and ending his reign. The cry of Uranus echoed through all of creation. His blood fell upon the earth, and from it new beings were born. The Furies, spirits of vengeance; the giants, who would one day rise in rebellion; and the Malaya, nymphs of the ash trees. From the foam of the sea, where the severed flesh of Uranus fell, rose something unexpected, a goddess of beauty and desire. Her name was Aphrodite, and her arrival marked the birth of love in the world. With Uranus gone, the heavens rose high above the earth, and the world was free to breathe again. Cronus, having freed his mother and siblings, became the new ruler of the cosmos. He took his seat as king, and for a time, peace returned. The earth was green, the rivers ran clear, and the heavens were calm. Yet deep within Cronus's heart, unease began to grow. Before Uranus vanished into the stars, he had spoken a curse, a prophecy that one day, Cronus too would be overthrown by his own child. And so, even as the new age of the Titans began, the shadow of fear fell upon it. Cronus ruled with pride, but always he listened for the whisper of fate, the promise that history, like the turning of the heavens, would someday repeat itself. The world was alive now. Earth and sky, light and darkness, day and night. But peace, as always, would not last forever. And that, dear listener, is how the first age began. From silence came the earth, from longing came the sky, and from their union came both creation and sorrow. The world was born vast, bright, and full of stories, yet to unfold. After the fall of Uranus, the heavens grew quiet. The stars shone brighter now that their prison of fear was gone. Gaia, the earth, stretched her green arms wide, breathing freely for the first time since the beginning. And Cronus, her son and champion, stood tall among the Titans as the new king of the cosmos. He ruled from a throne of stone and cloud, high above all lands. The Titans, his brothers and sisters, gathered around him, each given a realm of their own. The rivers ran under Os. The light of the sun and moon moved under Hyperion and Dea. The laws of the world were watched over by memory, dream, and thought, were guarded by Mnemosyne, and Rhea, fair and wise, sat beside Cronus as his queen. For a time, their rule was calm. The world was still young, and the air was filled with a golden peace. Mountains rose, seas deep in it, and the first winds whispered across the land. No mortals walked the earth, yet only gods, spirits, and strange ancient beings. The Titans moved among them as giants, shaping the world with slow and careful hands. It was said that this was the Golden Age. There was no war, no hunger, no sorrow. The earth gave freely of its fruits, and rivers flowed sweet with life. The sky was soft, the sun gentle, and every creature lived in harmony. There was no need for fire, no need for tools, for everything was already perfect and pure. But peace, even in heaven, cannot last forever. Cronus, though strong and clever, carried a secret fear in his heart. He remembered his father's last words, the prophecy that one day one of his own children would rise against him, just as he had risen against Uranus. He tried to forget it. He ruled with pride, pretending the future would not come. Yet every time Rhea smiled, every time a new child stirred in her womb, his heart filled with dread. One by one, the children of Cronus and Rhea were born, bright, powerful, and full of promise. But Cronus could not love them. The prophecy haunted him, whispering that one day his own blood would overthrow him. When the first child, Hestia, was born, Cronus took her in his arms, but instead of joy, fear filled him. He opened his mouth, and in one terrible act, swallowed the infant whole. Rhea cried out, but Cronus did not stop. He said it was for the good of the world, that no fate could be allowed to destroy the order he had built. Then came Demeter, goddess of grain and growth, and she too was swallowed. Then Hera, bright and proud, Hades, lord of the deep, and Poseidon, master of the sea. One by one, Cronus devoured them all, hiding them inside himself, trapped in darkness as their father once had been. Rhea was filled with grief. Her heart, once gentle, now burned with sorrow and anger. She could not bear to see another child taken, and when she felt life stir within her again, her sixth child, she made a plan. When the time came, she fled from Cronus's sight and went to the island of Crete. There, hidden in a cave beneath Mount Ida, she gave birth to her last son, Zeus. The child cried out, strong and clear, and the echo of his voice filled the mountains. Rhea looked at him and felt both fear and hope. To protect her newborn, she wrapped a large stone in swaddling cloth and returned to Cronus. She placed it gently in his hands, pretending it was the child. Without hesitation, Cronus swallowed the stone. He never noticed the difference. Meanwhile, Rhea left her true son in secret care. The baby Zeus was raised by gentle nymphs and fed with honey and the milk of the divine goat to hide his cries from his father's ears. A band of warriors called the Curetes danced and clashed their bronze shields outside the cave, their rhythm covering the infant's voice. Zeus grew quickly. He drank deeply from the springs of the mountain, and his eyes shone like the sky at dawn. He learned the songs of wind and thunder, and the strength of the earth beneath him. While Cronus ruled above, believing his power eternal, his youngest son waited below, growing stronger with each passing day. As Zeus became a man, he wandered far, guided by dreams and whispers from Gaia herself, the same mother of all things who had once helped Cronus overthrow Uranus. She spoke softly into Zeus's heart. Your father's time is ending. You must free your brothers and sisters, and bring balance to the world. Once more Zeus listened. He sought the wisdom of Midas, the tightness of thought and cunning. She taught him how to work not with force, but with patience and strategy. Under her counsel, Zeus devised a plan to challenge his father. He returned to the court of Cronus, disguised as a humble servant. Cronus did not recognize him. Zeus poured wine for his father and spoke in quiet tones. When the moment came, he offered Cronus a drink, a potion mixed with herbs from Metis. strong enough to break the curse that held Zeus's siblings inside. Cronus drank it. A tremor passed through him, and he cried out in pain. Then, one by one, the children he had swallowed long ago were freed, not as infants, but as fully grown gods, radiant and powerful. Hestia, goddess of the hearth, emerged first, then Demeter, who carried the scent of harvest. Hera, proud and sharp-eyed, followed. Then Hades, dark and quiet as stone, and finally Poseidon, with the strength of the deep seas. When they stood together at last, 6 in all, Zeus and his freed siblings, they looked upon Cronus and knew that the old order was ending. The Titan's golden peace had reached its final day. The children of Cronus rose to the heavens, not as servants, but as challengers. They would not live in their father's shadow. The world trembled as brother turned against brother, and ancient powers stirred in the depths of the earth. The age of Titans had been long and bright, but now new gods were awakening. Zeus stood among them, young, bold, and full of storm. He carried in his heart not only rebellion, but the promise of a new world, one where balance might finally be restored. Yet, even as the thunder of change began to rise, Cronus still held power. The coming war would not be short or gentle. It would shake the very bones of creation. But that, as the old storytellers would say, is a tale for another night. For now, remember this. The peace of the Titans was built on fear, and from that fear came courage. From Amoteres, sorrow came Asevia's birth, and from darkness, once again, light began to stir. The throne of Cronus stood upon the edge of time. Its seat was carved from ancient stone, its crown surrounded by clouds. For Maniachus, he had ruled without challenge, watching over a world that knew neither war nor want. To mortales, it was an age of peace. To the immortals, it was the stillness before a storm. Cronus had freed the earth from Uranus, and for that, he was once called the Just King. But justice faded when fear took root. Each sunrise reminded him of the curse his father had spoken, that one day he too would be struck down by his own son. He ruled in splendor, yet slept in terror. Every cry of a newborn filled him with dread. Every whisper of prophecy tightened the chains of fate around him. Though he had swallowed 5 children and a stone disguised as one, he could not silence the fear that haunted his heart. In secret, the world was already changing. Hidden away in the caves of Crete, Zeus had grown to manhood, guided by Gaia and the wisdom of Mythos. He learned the language of thunder and the calm of silence. He climbed mountains to touch the sky, and in the depths of his heart, he felt the old power of creation stirring once again. The world had waited long for a new dawn, and now, as Cronus grew older and more suspicious, the new age began to awaken. When Zeus revealed himself and freed his brothers and sisters from their father's body, the order of the Titans trembled. Cronus, struck with horror, beheld the children he had long thought lost, now standing before him, strong and unyielding. The prophecy had come to life. But Cronus was still a Titan, ancient and mighty. He would not surrender his throne easily. He called upon his siblings, the 12 great Titans, to stand beside him. From the peaks of Mount Athres, they gathered, the air around them heavy with storm. Across the heavens, Zeus and his freedkin took their place upon Mount Olympus, a new and brighter seat. There, the young gods swore to bring justice to the world. The old and the new were divided now, Titans on one side, Olympians on the other, and between them, the greatest war the world would ever know was about to begin. The war was called the Titanamacy, the Battle of the Titans. It lasted 10 long years, and the skies burned brighter than any flame of mortal fire. The Titans fought with the strength of mountains. Cronus's blade, the same sickle that had once struck Uranus, flashed through the storm. Okeanos, Koios, Crus, Hyperion, and Iapetus joined them there, roars echoing through heaven. The world shook beneath their feet, and the seas churned with rage. But Zeus and his siblings fought with the courage of youth and the power of destiny. Zeus hurled bolts of lightning forged from the breath of storms. Poseidon raised the seas in towering waves that struck like living walls. Hades opened chasms in the earth that swallowed whole armies of titans. Hera, Demeter, and Hestia stood beside them, their will unbroken, yet neither side could win. The war raged on, day after day, year after year. The sky turned black with smoke, the ground cracked, and the very bones of Gaia trembled. Still, no victor came. At last, Gaia herself spoke again. Her voice rose from the depths of the earth, soft yet mighty. "Zeus, my child, your strength alone cannot end this war. To defeat your father, you must turn to those whom he has forgotten." Zeus listened, and his heart stirred with hope. He descended into Tartarus, where the oldest of all prisoners lay bound, the Cyclopes and the 100-handed ones, children of Gaia and Uranus, imprisoned long ago by Cronus. With his thunderbolt in hand, Zeus shattered their chains. The Cyclopes rose, their single eyes blazing like furnaces. They thanked Zeus and offered him gifts, weapons, unlike any seen before. For Zeus, they forged the thunderbolt, a weapon of storm and light, born from the fire of the heavens. For Poseidon, they made the trident, with which he would command the seas and stir the depths. And for Hades, they gave a helm of darkness, to make its wearer unseen by any living thing. The 100-handed ones, fierce and loyal, joined the war as well. Each had 100 arms, and from every hand they hurled stones as large as mountains. Their strength shook the earth and turned the tide of battle. When the next storm came, the Olympians struck with all their might. Lightning cracked, seas roared, and the earth itself rose up. The Titans, though proud and ancient, began to fall one by one. Cronus fought until the very end. He faced Zeus high above the clouds, the storm raging around them. Thunder and fire filled the sky, and the clash of their weapons echoed through eternity. At last, the sickle that had cut the heavens was struck from Cronus's hand. The thunderbolt of Zeus blazed through the storm, and the rule of the Titans ended. But Zeus, though victorious, did not slay his father. He had learned from the mistakes of the past. Instead, he cast Cronus and his followers into Tartarus, that dark abyss at the bottom of the world, and set the 100-handed ones as their guards. Chains of bronze bound the fallen Titans forever. Deep beneath the earth where no light reached, only a few Titans were spared. Prometheus and Epimetheus, sons of Iapetus, who had aided the gods with wisdom and foresight, were allowed to remain free. So too was Theseus, who had guided the justice of the world. When the last thunder faded, silence returned to the heavens. The war was over. The world, scarred by fire and storm, began to heal. The seas grew calm, the sky cleared, and the mountains, once broken, stood tall again. Zeus and his brothers looked upon the quiet world below them. They had won the throne, but the question remained: who would rule what? The cosmos was too vast for one to hold alone. So the three brothers gathered and cast lots to divide the world. To Zeus fell the sky, the broad heavens, and the air between clouds and stars. To Poseidon went the seas, the deep waters and all rivers that ran across the earth. And to Hades fell the underworld, the shadowed land of the dead beneath the soil. The earth itself, Gaia's living body, was left to all of them in common, so that life might remain balanced between heaven, sea, and underworld. And so, the world was divided, and the age of the gods began. Zeus, now the king of Olympus, built his throne high above the clouds, where no mortal eye could see. Beside him sat his quintubi, Hera, proud and watchful. Around them gathered the gods who would shape the destiny of both heaven and earth. But though Cronus had been cast down, his curse still lingered in the air. Just as he had feared his son, so too would Zeus one day fear his own. The circle of fate, once broken, had already begun to turn again. The Titans were gone, but time itself, Cronus's true realm, continued to move forward, silent and unstoppable. And in that silence, a new story waited to be told. The story of Olympus and the world of gods and mortals soon to come. After the War of the Titans, the world was quiet again. Smoke faded from the mountains, the seas rested, and the winds grew soft. The sky stood clean and bright above the newborn age. But far below that peace, in the memory of the earth, the story of Zeus truly began. Long before he was king of Olympus, Zeus was a child hidden in secret, a child born beneath fear and prophecy. His mother, Rhea, had suffered greatly under Cronus. One by one, she had seen her children taken and swallowed by their father. Her heart was worn with grief, yet still she hoped. When she felt the life of another child within her, she promised that this one would not be lost. In the stillness of night, she fled from Cronus's halls. Guided by the whisper of Gaia, she crossed mountains and valleys until she reached the green island of Crete. There, under the shadow of Mount Ida, she found a hidden cave lined with stone and moss. There were no servants, no guards, only the soft hum of wind through rock and the murmur of springs that trickled through the dark. There she gave birth to her last child, Zeus. The cave filled with new sound, the first cry of a god who would change the world. Rhea looked upon him and saw both hope and danger. She knew Cronus would come searching, and she had only moments to act. She wrapped a great stone in cloth, made it feel heavy in her arms, and when Cronus came asking for the child, she placed the stone in his hands. He swallowed it without a glance. Satisfied, he believed the curse was broken and his rule safe once more. But far away, hidden in the cave, the real child lay safe. Rhea entrusted him to Amalthea, a gentle goat of divine kind. Her milk was sweet with the strength of the heavens. Around them gathered a band of guardians, the young warriors who danced with shields and spears, striking their bronze blades together whenever the baby cried. Their clamor echoed through the hills, so Cronus would hear only the noise of war, never the sound of his son. Zeus grew quickly, as gods do. He learned the sound of rivers and the movement of clouds. He watched lightning from the mountain's edge and felt it stir within his heart. He chased the wind through valleys, learning how it curved and changed. His eyes were bright as stormlight, and even in childhood, his voice carried calm authority. Under Gaia's watchful gaze, he was taught many things. From her he learned patience, that even the earth must wait for spring. From the Curetes, he learned courage and the rhythm of battle. From the quiet of the cave, he learned silence and thought. And from Amalthea, he learned kindness, for even great strength is empty without mercy. When he reached manhood, Gaia spoke to him in dream. Her voice was like the deep breath of the world itself. "Zeus," she said, "your time has come. The world is bound by chains your father forged. Free your brothers and sisters, and let the heavens breathe again." Zeus rose at dawn and left the mountain. He carried with him the memory of the cave and the strength of his secret youth. The world he entered was vast, rivers without end, forests untouched, skies heavy with stars. Everywhere he walked, the air stirred, as though the heavens already knew their next ruler had come. He journeyed east and sought the wisdom of Metis, the tightness of thought and counsel. She saw in him not a child of rebellion, but a mind clear as sunlight after rain. She agreed to aid him. "Do not face your father with sword alone," she told him. "His power is old and his fear deep. Win him with cunning, and you will win the world." Together they crafted a plan. Zeus would return to Cronus, not as an enemy, but as a servant. He would hide his strength beneath humility, waiting for the right moment. When Zeus entered the halls of Cronus, no one knew him. The Titan King sat upon his throne, heavy with age and suspicion. Zeus poured wine and spoke softly. He waited. Days turned to weeks, and still Cronus did not suspect. Then, one night, Zeus offered him a cup mixed with the potion Metis had prepared, a bitter drink that would wake what Cronus had swallowed long ago. Cronus drank. The ground shivered. A great roar echoed through his body. Then, one after another, the children he had devoured were released. Hestia, keeper of the hearth; Demeter, bringer of harvest; Hera, proud and wise; Hades, ruler of the deep places; Poseidon, master of the seas; They emerged full-grown, shining with the strength of gods, reborn into the light. The air changed. For the first time since the dawn of the Titans, laughter returned to heaven. The 6 siblings stood together, bound by the pain of what had been done to them and by the hope of what might come next. Cronus, weakened by the loss of his captives, felt the truth of prophecy stir once more. He knew the end of his rule had begun, but pride does not surrender. Easily, he called the Titans to arms. The old powers gathered at Mount Athres, heavy with storm. Zeus and his siblings climbed the heights of Mount Olympus, a peak that pierced the clouds. There they swore to stand together as one. They were no longer frightened children, but a new generation of gods. The world watched as 2 great forces faced one another. The Titans, ancient as time itself, and the Olympians, young as dawn. When the first strike came, the sky shook. Lightning flashed across the heavens. Theseus rose, and from that moment, the rule of the Titans began to crumble. The battles that followed would last 10 years. They would shake heaven and earth, but in that first instant, when Zeus freed his brothers and sisters, the course of all history changed. The world that had once belonged to the Titans was now open to the children of light and storm. Zeus, still young, yet already wise, stood at the heart of it. He knew what power meant, and he knew what fear had done to his father. He swore that he would never rule as Cronus had ruled by swallowing what he feared, but by protecting what he loved. The wind around Olympus carried that vow through the valleys and across the sea, and though the coming war would test him beyond all measure, that promise would remain the root of his strength. So ended the hidden years of Zeus, the years of secrecy, of caves and milk and mountain air. Ahead lay thunder and fire, the rise of Olympus, and the shaping of the world we would come to know. The world had never seen such a storm. The sky turned silver with lightning. The mountains trembled, and the seas roared as if they carried voices of their own. From the highest clouds to the deepest caverns, everything alive felt the weight of change. The rule of Cronus had ended, and a new power had risen the sons and daughters he had once swallowed. But victory was not yet complete. The Titans still lived, and their pride would not let them bow. And so began the Titanomachy, the war that would decide the fate of heaven and earth. The Titans gathered upon Mount Athres, their fortress of stone and mist. Cronus stood at their head, Talangrim. His eyes burned with fury, and his hand gripped the same sickle that had once cut down Uranus. Around him stood the great Titans, Iapetus, wise and watchful, Hyperion, shining, lord of light, Crias and Cous, keepers of the stars, and many others, bound by old loyalty and older anger. Across the sky, on the shining heights of Mount Olympus, stood the new gods, Zeus and his brothers and sisters. The air around them hummed with strength. Zeus held his thunderbolt, bright as day. Poseidon carried his trident, gleaming like a wave beneath the sun. Hades stood silent, his eyes deep as night, the helm of darkness resting in his hands. Beside them stood the goddesses, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia, each bearing the calm resolve of those who had suffered long. Between the 2 mountains stretched a world waiting for its fate. For 10 years the war would rage, and for 10 years neither side would yield. At first, the Titans held the advantage. Their strength was ancient, their bodies vast as peaks, their voices strong as thunder. When they marched, the ground shook. When they struck, the air split apart. They hurled mountains and rivers as weapons. Cronus's sickle cut through storm and stone alike. The young gods fought bravely, but the power of the Titans was immense. Many times Zeus was driven back, his lightning swallowed by storm. The world burned with their struggle. Forest filled, oceans boiled. The very sky began to crack from the force of their battle. In Tosidais, Evangaya, the earth herself, groaned with pain. She had birthed the Titans long ago, and now she watched her children destroy the home she had given them. Her voice rose through the soil, whispering to Zeus, "This cannot continue. The world will break before it bends." "Zeus listened." He climbed to the highest peak and prayed for wisdom. From the heart of the storm came an answer, faint but clear. It was the voice of Gaia again, guiding him toward the ancient prison of Tartarus. where his father had locked away the firstborn children of earth and sky. The Cyclopes and the 100-handed ones. "Free them," said the voice. "They will turn the tide." Zeus descended into the shadows beneath the world. The path to Tartarus was steep and cold. No sunlight reached it, only the dim red glow of the deep earth's fire. He found the Cyclopes there. Giant craftsmen with a single eye each, chained and forgotten. Beside them lay the 100-handed ones, each with 50 heads and 100 arms, bound in unending darkness. Zeus broke their chains. The Cyclopes rose, stretching their mighty limbs, and the air filled with the heat of their forges. They thanked Zeus for his courage and pledged their loyalty. As a gift, they forged weapons for the gods, tools of divine power, unlike anything the Titans had known. For Zeus, they crafted the thunderbolt, forged from the fire of heaven and the breath of storms. For Poseidon, they shaped the trident, a weapon that could command all waters and shake the seas to their depths. For Hades, they created the helm of darkness, which gave its wearer the power to vanish from sight and move unseen through shadow. With these gifts, Zeus returned to the battlefield. The 100-handed ones joined him, hurling mountains with their 100 arms. The earth itself seemed to fight on the side of the new gods. The next battle was unlike any before it. Zeus raised his thunderbolt, and the sky lit up in white fire. Bolts of light rained down, striking the Titans and splitting the clouds. Poseidon called the seas to rise. Waves climbed the mountains and crashed down like living creatures. Hades slipped through shadow, unseen, striking from the dark. The Titans, though mighty, began to falter beneath this storm of power. Cronus fought until the heavens shook. He met Zeus, high above the clouds. Their clash filled the sky with flame and storm. Cronus swung his sickle, but Zeus caught it with lightning. The two powers struck again and again, their blows echoing across creation. Finally, the thunderbolt of Zeus shattered the sickle, and the war came to its end. The Titans fell. Their cries rolled across the land and faded into silence. The world grew still once more. Those who had sided with Cronus were bound in chains of bronze and cast into Tartarus, the same prison that had held the Cyclopes before them. The 100-handed ones was set as their guards, standing watch forever in the depths. Only a few Titans were spared: Prometheus, whose wisdom had helped Zeus, and Epimetheus, who had no love for war. They were allowed to remain upon the earth, to walk among the younger gods. When the dust settled and the skies cleared, Zeus stood upon Olympus and looked out over the world. He saw rivers flowing again, forests returning to life, and the stars burning bright in the heavens. The war had ended, but the cost had been great. The earth bore the scars of battle, and the sea still trembled from its fury. Yet peace, for the first time in an age, had returned. The gods gathered around Zeus. It was time to decide how the world would be ruled. No one god could hold all things. So the three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, cast lots to divide the realms. To Zeus fell the sky and the heavens, the light and the clouds, the winds and the storms. To Poseidon went the seas, the rivers, and all the waters of the earth. To Hades was given the underworld, the realm of shadow and the quiet spirits of the dead. The earth itself they agreed to share, for all life rested upon it. And so, the world was set in order. Zeus sat upon his high throne on Mount Olympus, the lord of gods and men. Beside him stood his queen-to-be Hera, proud and fierce. Poseidon took his trident and descended to the depths, where he ruled his crystal palace beneath the waves. And Hades, calm and silent, withdrew into the underworld, where his realm glowed faintly with ghostly light. The war of the gods was over. The age of Titans had passed, and from the ruins of chaos, a new harmony began to grow. Zeus looked upon the still world and felt both pride and burden. He had claimed victory, but he also carried the weight of peace. For the gods who ruled the sky must never forget that storms come again, always, and without warning. Thus began the reign of Olympus, and the long age of gods and mortals that would shape the rest of time. The heavens were steady, Theseus come, and for a while the world slept in balance once more. When the war between the Titans and the new gods had ended, the heavens grew still. The skies stood clear once more, and the mountains that had cracked in battle slowly healed. The seas rested, the air grew soft, and a quiet order returned to the world. Zeus now sat upon his throne, atop Mount Olympus. The clouds drifted around him like slow rivers of mist. He ruled over heaven and earth with calm authority, watching from his seat as life began to stir again across the lands below. The gods were no longer hidden or bound by fear. They moved freely, each shaping their part of the world. Poseidon lifted his trident and drew paths for rivers and oceans. Hades, deep below, made his realm a place of rest for all souls who would one day depart the living world. Hera watched over marriage and the bonds of family. Demeter brought wheat and fruit to the earth, and Hestia guarded the sacred fire at the heart of every home. But something was missing. The earth was green, the heavens bright, yet it was quiet. The fields grew wild and empty. The forests stood tall but silent. There were no voices to give thanks, no hands to build or write or sing. And so the thought came to the gods. Perhaps the world should know another kind of life, one that could think, create, and remember. A being shaped not from fire or cloud, but from the same earth that had given birth to Gaia herself. The one who felt this most deeply was Prometheus, the Titan who had sided with Zeus during the Great War. He was wise, patient, and kind toward all living things, while the gods built palaces of marble and gold. Prometheus walked among the valleys and streams, studying the world with quiet wonder. He saw the stones, the soil, and the clay, and in his heart, an idea began to take form. He knelt upon the ground, scooped up the soft earth, and began to shape it. From his skilled hands came the first image of man, tall, upright, and filled with the breath of thought. When the figure was complete, Prometheus whispered to the winds, asking for life to enter his creation. The air stirred, and the clay became warm. The first man opened his eyes. Prometheus smiled. It shaped altars women and men, young and old, each one slightly different, each one gifted with curiosity. He taught them how to speak, how to build shelter, how to know the stars. They were simple, but they were alive, and the gods looked down from Olympus and watched them with interest. For a while, Zeus was pleased. He saw that mankind honored the gods and built small altars at the foot of the mountains. They gave offerings of grain and fruit, and they sang praises when rain came and crops grew. But Obertine Prometheus grew troubled. He saw that mortals were weak. They shivered in the cold nights. They hid from storms and beasts. They could not cook their food, nor light their homes, for they had no fire. Prometheus asked Zeus to share the divine flame with mankind. But Zeus refused. He said, "Fire belongs to the gods. If men have it, they will forget, respect, and grow proud." Prometheus said nothing, but in his heart he knew what he must do. Under cover of darkness, he climbed the heights of Olympus, where the sacred flame of the gods burned eternal. He lit a torch from that fire, hid it in a hollow reed, and carried it down to the earth. When the first light reached mankind, the darkness of night no longer frightened them. They built hearths, cooked their food, and gathered together in warmth. Smoke rose into the sky, and for the first time, men laughed beside their fires. But when Zeus saw the light upon the earth, his anger was great. The fire had been stolen from heaven, and the order of the gods had been broken. He called Prometheus before him and spoke in thunder. "You have defied me," he said. "You have given what was meant only for the divine." Prometheus answered quietly, "I gave it to those who needed it. Without fire, they could not survive. Without warmth, they could not live." Zeus's eyes hardened. "Then you will pay the price of your gift." He commanded that Prometheus be bound to a lonely mountain at the edge of the world. Chains of bronze held him fast. Each day, an eagle came and tore at his flesh, and each night his wounds would heal again, only for the suffering to return with dawn. So it continued for ages, until mercy would one day come. But that tale would belong to another time. Still, Zeus's punishment did not end there. He turned his gaze once more to mankind. They had gained fire, and with it, the spark of independence. To remind them that gifts from the gods could carry sorrow as well as joy, he commanded the creation of something new, something beautiful and dangerous. He called upon Hephaestus, the divine craftsman, to shape a woman of perfect form. The other gods gave her gifts: grace from Aphrodite, charm from Hermes, and curiosity from Athena. Her name was Pandora, the one who holds all gifts. Zeus sent her to the world of men, carrying a sealed jar, which she was told never to open. For a time, she obeyed, but curiosity is a quiet voice that never sleeps. At last, unable to resist, Pandora lifted the lid. From the jar poured all the sorrows of the world: sickness, pain, jealousy, hunger, and fear. They spread across the earth like shadows. When she saw what she had done, Pandora quickly closed the lid, trapping only one thing inside: hope. And so it was that the world became, as we know it, both joy and suffering, both laughter and loss. Men had fire, but they also had struggle. They had knowledge, but also the weight of consequence. Still, Zeus watched them with interest. He saw them build homes, plant fields, and tell stories by their fires. He saw that though life had become hard, mankind did not give up. They learned, they loved, they dreamed. In time, poets would say that mankind lived through 5 great ages. The first was the Golden Age, when men lived close to the gods and knew only peace. Then came the Silver Age, when pride began to grow and obedience faded. After that came the Bronze Age, an age of war and strength. Then the Heroic Age, when great souls walked the earth and legends were born. And at last, the Iron Age, when sorrow and toil became the common fate of humankind. But even in the darkest times, the flame Prometheus had given them never went out. It burned in every home, in every act of courage, and in every spark of hope that still lived in the hearts of men. And so the gods watched from Olympus, sometimes guiding, sometimes judging, but always listening. For though the world below had changed, one thing remained certain: as long as fire burned and stories were told, the memory of the gods would never fade. When the age of men had taken root, the gods watched from the heights of Olympus. The world had grown busy with life, cities rising along rivers, ships crossing bright seas, and people calling upon the gods for favor and mercy. Some prayed for harvest, others for love, others for victory in battle. And though Zeus ruled the heavens, he knew that the world now belonged not only to the gods, but to those who dared to live upon it. This became the age of heroes, when men and women rose beyond their mortal limits and touched the edge of the divine. It was a time when courage shaped the fate of kingdoms, and the voices of gods echoed through mortal dreams. Among these heroes, a few names burned brighter than all the rest. Perseus, the slayer of the Gorgon Perseus, was born of both man and god. His mother, Danae, had been locked away in a tower by her father, who feared a prophecy that her son would one day bring about his death. But Zeus, ever watchful, visited her in the form of golden light, and from that light Perseus was born. When he grew to manhood, keen Polydectes, a cruel and cunning man, sought to rid himself of Perseus. He sent him on an impossible task: to bring back the head of Medusa, the Gorgon whose gaze could turn any living creature to stone. Perseus accepted, though the task was certain death. The gods took pity on his courage. Athena gave him a shining shield like a mirror. Hermes placed in his hand a blade as light as wind. From the nymphs, he received winged sandals and a hidden pouch in which to carry the head once the deed was done. He flew across deserts and seas, until he found the lair of the Gorgon's 3 sisters with snakes for hair, sleeping among broken statues that had once been men. Moving carefully, he did not look directly upon Medusa. He used the mirror of Athena's shield to see her reflection, and when the moment came, he struck. The blade cut swift and true. From Medusa's blood sprang Pegasus, the white-winged horse, and Chrysaor, a giant of golden sword. Perseus took the head, placed it in the pouch, and fled before the other Gorgons awoke. On his journey home, he rescued Andromeda, a princess chained to a rock by the sea, offered as sacrifice to a sea monster. Perseus turned the beast to stone with the Gorgonesque gaze, and carried Andromeda home as his wife. When he returned to his homeland, he fulfilled the prophecy not by anger, but by accident, for the discus he threw in a contest struck his grandfather, ending his reign. Thus, the word of fate was complete, and the gods smiled, for even in tragedy, Destiny had its balance. Heracles, the strongest of men next, came Heracles, son of Zeus, and the mortal woman from birth. He was marked by both strength and struggle. Hera, jealous of her husband's mortal child, sent serpents to his cradle. But the infant Heracles rose and crushed them with his bare hands. As he grew, his might became unmatched. Yet with strength came trials, for Hera's hatred never faded. She drove him into madness, and in his rage, he brought harm to those he loved. When the madness lifted, he saw what he had done and fell to his knees in despair. Seeking forgiveness, Heracles turned to the oracle of Delphi, who told him he must serve King Eurystheus and perform 12 labors to cleanse his soul. One by one, he faced them. He strung-lad the Nemean lion, whose hide no weapon could pierce. He slew the Hydra, a serpent with many heads that grew back when cut. He captured the Erymanthian boar, cleaned the vast stables of Augeas in a single day by turning rivers through them, and hunted the swift Cyrenian hind. He faced monsters, thieves, and even death itself, descending into the underworld to bring back the 3-headed hound Cerberus. Through all these trials, he did not lose his courage, and in time, even Hera's anger began to soften. When his mortal life ended, Zeus brought him to Olympus, granting him immortality. Heracles took his place among the gods, a symbol of strength earned through suffering. Theseus, the bringer of order. Another hero of that age was Theseus, prince of Athens. He was clever and bold, and his story was one of courage joined with wisdom. In those days, Athens lived under the shadow of Crete, forced to send young men and women each year as tribute to the Minotaur, a creature half man and half bull that lived in the labyrinth. Beneath King Minos' palace, Theseus volunteered to go, vowing to end the curse. With the help of Ariadne, Minos' daughter, who gave him a ball of thread to guide his way, Theseus entered the maze. The twisting paths seemed endless, yet he did not turn back. At last, in the deepest chamber, he faced the Minotaur. They fought fiercely in the dark, and Theseus struck the creature down. He followed the thread back to the light and led his companions home, freeing Athens from its bondage. From that day he was remembered not only for strength, but for bringing justice and unity to his people. Jason and the quest for the Golden Fleece in another land. The hero Jason sought to reclaim his father's throne from the usurper Peleus. Peleus told him that he would surrender the crown only if Jason could bring back the Golden Fleece, which hung in a faraway land, guarded by a dragon. Jason gathered the bravest men of Greece, the Argonauts, and sailed aboard the ship Argo. Among them were many heroes: Orpheus, whose music could calm the sea; Castor and Pollux, the twin sons of Zeus; and even Heracles, who joined for a time. Their journey was long and perilous. They faced crashing rocks that crushed ships, harpies that tormented the blind prophet Phineus, and islands of strange and deadly beauty. At last, with the help of Medea, a sorceress who loved him, Jason reached the land of Kalki. There he faced the dragon, and with Medea's magic, he took the fleece and fled. But their return was marked by betrayal and sorrow, for human hearts are not as simple as divine rewards. Still, the name of Jason and the Argo lived on, remembered in every harbor and sung in every hall. Thus the age of heroes unfolded, an age when men stood beside gods, when courage was a bridge between heaven and earth. The gods looked upon these mortals with mixed hearts, proud of their bravery, yet wary of their growing pride. For each victory brought mankind closer to the divine, and Zeus, though wise, feared what too much power might bring. Still, he allowed their stories to be told, for even the gods knew that tales of valor gave meaning to both heaven and earth, and when these heroes were gone, their names were written among the stars. Perseus as a constellation in the north, Heracles shining bright along the Milky Way, and others scattered across the night sky. The gods kept their watch, the mortals kept their fire, and the world moved onward. The age of heroes was ending, but their memory would never die. For as long as men spoke by firelight and children listened in wonder, their stories would live teaching courage, sacrifice, and the hope that even mortal hearts could touch the edge of eternity. The age of heroes had passed. The fires that once burned on every altar began to grow dim. Cities rose and fell, kingdoms changed, and men built new temples to new names. But high above the shifting world, the peaks of Olympus still touched the clouds. There, the gods watched in silence, as time moved forward like a quiet river that no power could stop. Zeus sat upon his throne, the master of sky and thunder. His face was calm, yet his eyes had grown distant. He had seen too many ages come and go. He had ruled longer than any king of earth ever would, and he knew that even divine rule cannot last forever. The gods still held their places. Poseidon ruled the seas with his trident of silver light. Hades guarded the shadowed lands below, where the souls of men wandered like leaves in autumn wind. Hera, proud and steady, still guided marriage and family. Demeter tended to the harvest. Persephone to the turning seasons. Aphrodite walked among mortals, unseen, weaving threads of love and longing. And Athena's wisdom filled the hearts of poets, rulers, and dreamers. Yet the world was changing. Mortals had begun to look less to Olympus and more to themselves. They had learned to till the land, to build, to write, and to remember. Their fires no longer waited for lightning from the sky. Their songs no longer asked the gods to speak, they spoke for themselves. Some among the gods feared this change. They whispered that mankind was forgetting. Others smiled, saying that this, too, was the natural order, that the children must one day walk without the hand of their parents. Zeus watched both views with quiet understanding. He remembered his own war against Cronus, how one age had overthrown another. Perhaps, he thought, it was time for even the gods to fade, not in defeat, but in peace. One by one, the signs appeared. The winds carried fewer prayers. Temples grew cold. Offerings became rare. The gods who had once been called upon each day now found themselves listening to silence. Ares, the god of war, wandered through empty battlefields where once armies had cried his name. Apollo's lyre grew quiet as the music of men took new forms. Even Dionysus, god of wine and joy, found fewer feasts to bless. But it was not sorrow that filled Olympus. It was reflection. They had shaped the world, taught humankind, and lived their stories through the centuries. And now, the time had come for those stories to become memory. Not lost, but transformed. It was Athena who spoke first in council. Her voice was calm and clear. "The mortals will not forget us," she said. "They will give us new life in their words. They will call us myths, and in that name, we shall live forever." Hermes smiled and nodded. "Yes," he said, "we will travel not in wind or sky, but in the minds of those who dream." Even Zeus, who had always spoken with thunder, now spoke softly. "Their stories will be our temples. Their thoughts will be our offerings. And as long as one voice speaks of Olympus, we will not die." And so, the gods accepted what time had always promised. They did not fall as the Titans had fallen. They did not vanish into shadow. They simply stepped aside, letting the world of men move forward beneath the same sky they once ruled. Still, from time to time, when storms roll across the mountains or waves strike the cliffs, one might feel their presence faint, like a memory in the wind. The rumble of thunder might be Zeus's laughter. The scent of salt and foam might be Poseidon's breath. The quiet strength of the earth might still be Demeter's care. The spark of courage before a battle, a journey, or a confession might be Athena's wisdom stirring an immortal heart. For the gods were never only in heaven. They were always part of the world. Its light, its dark, its beauty, and its struggle. When mortals told their stories, they carried pieces of the divine with them, and through those stories, the gods remained. The poets of Greece would one day write of them, of Zeus, Hera, Athena, and all the rest. Their words would be passed from tongue to tongue, from scroll to book, from age to age. They would travel across seas and through centuries, carried by sailors, scholars, and dreamers. In time, those stories would reach every corner of the earth. And though the old temples would crumble, their marble scattered, their statues broken, the spirit within them would endure. For no stone, no matter how perfect, can hold a god forever. But a story can. It is said that on certain nights, when the moon is bright and the air still, Olympus itself seems to glow faintly in the distance. A traveler who looks closely might imagine figures among the clouds, not with fear, but with calm recognition. Perhaps it is Zeus, watching the world he once ruled. Perhaps it is Hera beside him, her gaze proud and unbroken. Or perhaps it is only the wind remembering their names. The world of men continued to change. New empires rose, new gods were born, new faiths grew strong. Yet even in these new ages, the old stories lingered. They became lessons, symbols, and quiet dreams. Children heard them before sleep, and the echoes of Olympus whispered again. The gods had not been lost. They had become eternal in a different way. No longer rulers of sky and storm, but keepers of imagination, of memory, of the deep bond between wonder and wisdom. And so, the tale of the Greek gods came to its end, not with battle, but with silence, not with sorrow, but with peace. The heavens remained bright, the earth continued to turn, and the fires of man still glowed at night. From chaos had come life. From fear had come courage. From myth had come meaning. And in the quiet moments between waking and sleep, when the stars drift slowly above, perhaps you can still hear them. The soft murmur of ancient voices, the laughter of gods carried by the wind, and the gentle whisper of time itself, reminding us that all stories, even those of gods, are part of one endless song. And now, dear listener, our journey through the myths of ancient Greece draws to its gentle close. The clouds of Olympus grow faint, the thunder quiets, and the gods return to their eternal rest beyond the stars. We have walked beside them through creation and chaos, through courage and love, and as their voices fade, they leave behind a timeless truth, that even the greatest powers must one day rest, and only memory keeps them alive. As you sit here now, wherever you are in the world, perhaps the night is deep around you, the city lights soft beneath your window, or maybe dawn is beginning to rise on the far edge of your sky. Wherever time finds you, in evening peace or morning calm, know that you have shared an hour in the company of ancient history, spoken slowly to bring your mind to stillness. Here on Go to Sleep Historia, our purpose is simple: to help you rest through the comfort of story, to remind you that the past can be a gentle place, and to carry you peacefully from thought to dream. If this tale brought you calm or meaning tonight, we invite you to subscribe, so that you may join us again for more quiet journeys through the old worlds of myth, wonder, and forgotten time. And to those who return each night, your kindness, your presence, and your listening hearts are what keep this fire burning. Thank you. Truly. Now, close your eyes, let your breath slow, and release the weight of the day. The spoken story has ended, but for you, the night continues deep sleep. Gentle, calm, and relaxing music. A quiet river of sound to help you drift into deep and peaceful sleep. Until we meet again, dear listener, rest well, dream deeply, and may the calm of ancient times watch over you.